Hello creatures, welcome to Bound by Words. My name is Maddie. This is Flurry. He's being really needy, so he's probably going to be in and out of the video today. But today we are talking about the 4 types of NaNoWriMo projects and what to do with them whenever you're done with NaNoWriMo. I will leave timestamps for each of the different types of projects in the description below, and I also have some information for everybody on all types of NaNoWriMo projects at the end, so make sure you keep watching.
My world is finally starting to take shape. I press the button and it bursts into...
So without any dilly-dallying, the first type of NaNoWriMo project is the experiment project, and that is if you decided to write a totally different genre or a totally different style for the duration of NaNoWriMo, and if you did, I hope you stuck it out and wrote the whole month in that style. But these projects might be something like if you're a romance writer, you decided to write action adventure, or if you're a fantasy writer, you decided to write something slightly more contemporary, things like that. So if you have an experimental NaNoWriMo project, then there's really one big decision you have to make towards the end of the month and as you move forward, and that is your story baby worth keeping, or was it a great learning experience and it should be discarded? And by discarded, I don't mean thrown away. I sort of just mean saved in a folder you might not look at very often. But is it something that not only you want to pursue and finish, but it would be worth the time and the effort that you would put into it? And if the answer to that is yes, then that is amazing, and you should make plans right away as to how you're going to do that. And if you don't make those decisions right away, then your other projects or other things in your life might just totally take over, and you don't want that story to be neglected. So make a goal of how you're going to proceed with the story then, if this is the category you are in. Project type 2 is what I like to call the slow burn novels, and these are books that have already been started before NaNoWriMo began, and whether it was just a month before it began or you've been writing the book for an entire year and you just decided, well, I'm going to take advantage of the community and accountability, and I'm going to use my book that I've been writing and I'm going to use NaNoWriMo to add words to it. If you are in this category, then great. Good for you for utilizing the tools that are available. And it might be a good idea after this NaNoWriMo stuff has died down to evaluate your habits during the writing challenge month. Did you write early in the morning? Did you write late at night? Were you most productive when everything was quiet? Did you have to go somewhere else to write? Keep track of those things and sort of start making a list of good writing habits that you had now when it's fresh in your mind right after Nano, so that you can use those to your advantage in the future. If you have been slowly pouring through this book and then during NaNoWriMo you were able to get a small chunk of it done, then what did you do differently that you were able to crank out those words a little bit more steadily? So maybe you learned during NaNoWriMo that you are most creative when you go to a cafe and you order a fancy drink and you get a snack and you sit and you eat and you write. Whatever your thing is, everyone sort of has a most productive zone. Some people can't listen to music whatsoever. Some people need music. These are things that you want to take note of if you're in the writing process to get done. This is also a great time sort of in the midst of the writing process to experiment. And I would say this about almost anything, whether you're writing or editing. It's just experimenting is how you sort of learn what works best for you. So if your project is a slow burn, experiment a little bit, make note of the things that are working good for you, make sure you give yourself rewards along the way, and don't give up on your project. It is just the beginning. Project type number 3 is the new project or the drafting stage. So I think it is a NaNoWriMo staple that whenever you do a NaNoWriMo event that you start a new project. However, Camp NaNoWriMo, I feel like there's an equal number of editors and writers nowadays. And I think for the November NaNoWriMo, there's more and more editors every year, but the tradition is to write 50,000 words of a new book in the month of November. So whether you have done Camp NaNoWriMo or NaNoWriMo, if you're working on a new project, what have you accomplished in that project during this month? So I think this sort of area depends a lot on whether or not you are a plotter or a pantser. So if you're a plotter, you probably have I almost said syllabus. If you're a plotter, you probably have an outline totally ready. You probably have your scene cards and everything down. If you're a pantser, these might be things you could do now during your break. So the time after NaNoWriMo where sort of almost nobody feels like writing, there's always a short period of time where everyone's like, we just finished, what now? And that's sort of what we're talking about today. So in that what now period, if you are doing a new project, if you are a plotter and you have an outline, you can revisit your outline and see, is it still accurate? Do you need to change it? Do you need to add new characters? Do you need to take things away? You can go ahead and revisit that now. If you are a discovery writer, are you choosing to make an outline as you go, or are you just not having an outline at all? Are you going to have character sheets? Things like that you can revisit and now take like a working break and say like, well, I have 3 characters I introduced. I can make character sheets for all of them during this time where I just finished this challenge and I want a little bit of a break, but I don't want to let my project go. Project type number 4 is the editing project, and I feel like this is on the rise, and I don't know if it's because NaNoWriMo has become more popular the last few years, so I feel like there's more manuscripts floating around, or because it's been more acceptable to edit during NaNoWriMo events, both Camp NaNoWriMo and the regular event in November. So there's lots of editing projects going around, and for you people who are editing, I don't need to tell you, you've already committed to the entire first draft. Some people have already done a second or a third draft. If you're editing, you are totally committed to your project. But NaNoWriMo is considered a time to push and challenge yourself. So what did you do that you challenged yourself this month? When did you push yourself too hard? Things like this apply to editing as well as writing, and I think not a lot of people talk about that end of it. They always talk about writing burnout, but editing burnout is a thing too. So if you are editing during this Camp NaNoWriMo and you just finished a month long of dedicated editing, then maybe it's time to step back and say, is my editing process efficient? Am I holding myself back because I'm overdoing or underdoing things and it's causing problems for me later? Technical things like that. If you're in the editing stage, then you wrote your story, you know it well, you probably have a good vision for it. You might even have beta readers and people who are giving you feedback. You wrote it, you've been working to enhance it. There are so many different stages of editing, like I could barely scrape the surface with this, but the one main thing I always see revisited when people are talking about editing is game plan. So we see all these YouTube videos that are like my editing process, editing steps 1 to 2, how to edit for developmental errors, and how to line edit, and we see all these different editing videos because editing is actually the biggest portion of writing. So a lot of the time when we talk about what the hardest part of writing a book is, people mention like getting the words down, showing up, staying focused, getting started, typing the end, making relatable characters, being consistent, building a habit, things like that. But a lot of people don't bring up how editing is the biggest part of the book writing process, especially if you want your book to be published. So you do the drafting and you let it sit, and then you do like broad edits, and then you might evaluate the subplots or the character arcs. Then you want to go back in and make sure your chapters start and end at appropriate places. Then maybe if you're feeling really good about the story, you give it to a beta reader and let them tear it up, and then you get it back, and then you do more just like little edits, and you just keep going back through and you edit and you edit and you edit. So if you are in this stage for your NaNoWriMo project, then you're in the long haul. You already did the scripting and now you're just polishing something you've made to its maximum beauty. And you don't want to burn out in this stage because you're going to be here the longest. So even though you might want to push yourself and you're going to want to experiment and you're going to want to do things around Nano, you should be also doing that after Nano as well. So be realistic with yourself. If you need a break, go ahead and take one. And if you need a format change, maybe this would be a good time to say, well, I've been editing in Scrivener, maybe I'll edit the next 5 chapters in Google Docs or Word. Or you've been editing on your computer, so you want to print out the next 1 or 5 chapters or however many and edit just on paper. And I have some more stuff to say about it, but it really leads me into the advice for everyone portion of the video. So things that I would tell for everybody if you are writing, and this of course doesn't apply to people who just wrote for NaNoWriMo because they wanted to experience it and then decided writing is not for them. This advice is not for you. He is part of the video now. But my advice for everyone, the number one thing is to show up. Whatever you're doing now, pick a time, pick a place to sit down and work on your manuscript in the future. Are you going to give yourself a week off? Are you going to give yourself a few days off? Or are you going to take a whole month off? Plan that now so that whenever the time comes, you can sort of have everything together and everything ready to continue. Some people don't need a break after NaNoWriMo, so if that's you, then kudos to you. I think that's great. If you watch my NaNoWriMo vlogs, then I have decided to take a little bit of time off to polish what I've already written because I was doing discovery writing. So as I wrote, I found some things that would really make the beginning stronger. And I like my story and I have a clear idea of how to make it better now. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to fix that. And then I want to add new words to my manuscript by June 1st. And I'm giving myself a whole month because I start school in the end of May, and I don't want to have that like beginning adjustment period at school where I'm stressing out about adding words to my manuscript whenever school should be number one. And that brings me to my next point of advice, and that is to take your life into account. If you're done with school and this is the beginning of your summer and you're barely doing anything all summer and you have all the time in the world, then of course Write your heart out. Make a plan to start in a couple days. Don't wait if you have the time. If you have things that are super time consuming in your life and you've just been stressed out to write for Nano, take the time off you need and take care of yourself. But this fact and the setting a goal for yourself sort of work together. You should set a goal for yourself based on your real life situation. So if you are really busy and you just need some time to readjust, to recoup, to reevaluate your schedule, put an alarm on your phone for 2 weeks. And when that alarm goes off in 2 weeks, sit and think like, am I in a better place now? Can I get started? Do I have time I can plan and schedule for writing? I would definitely make the goal that is actually a specific date and maybe even time that you can sit down and write. I would do that as soon as possible. It's really dangerous sometimes to have really ambiguous time goals, because if you say like, oh yeah, I'll get back to it, like when? Are you actually going to get back to it? Are you going to forget about it? If this was like your side project and you want to finish it, are you going to go back to your main project and you're going to wait so long to come back to your side project that your writing's going to sort of clash with your old writing? You don't want things like that to happen. And the last bit of advice I have for everybody's Camp NaNoWriMo project is to find some sort of accountability. You can find accountability through the Camp NaNoWriMo site, but I would definitely recommend doing something where you can contact somebody in a different way, whether it's by email, whether it's your friend and you're texting them. They don't even have to be a writer if you don't want them to. If you tell your mom or your best friend, just do it so that you have somebody that you would feel guilty if you ever had to say like, oh, remember that book I never finished? It is really cool to have like a writing accountability partner, somebody who like also writes, so that you can say, oh, I got this many words today, or oh, here are my writing goals, and they understand and they can sort of give you feedback, or they can give you their writing goals, and you can make each other feel guilty when you don't meet them. But it works just as well if you tell your best friend and you tell them like, hey, if I don't write anything in a week, then yell at me. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. I post writing related content every Monday. He was so excited to be here, but he keeps falling asleep and snoring.